If it were revealed today that the world would enter its greatest test, would you be prepared? This is the question that echoes like a whisper within the soul, creating an uncomfortable silence, yet one full of mystery. Many live as if tomorrow were guaranteed. But what if we were suddenly called to face what the prophecies call the supreme test? This is where the theme of the spiritual armor requested by Mary comes in. A protection not of iron or steel, but of faith, prayer, fasting, love, and vigilance. An invisible armor, yet more powerful than any earthly defense. Since the apparitions in Medjugorje, more than 4 decades ago, there has been talk of messages that still remain hidden. 7 secrets that carry signs of warning and hope. And within these messages, according to the visionaries, lies the call to preparation, to an inner strengthening that cannot be postponed. Have you ever wondered why Mary so often insists on the same words? Prayer, fasting, conversion, vigilance? Perhaps it's because these are the true shield against the approaching darkness. Stay with me until the end, because what you'll discover now may surprise you. Imagine the scene. An invisible battlefield where weapons are made not of gunpowder or metal, but of spiritual choices. On one side, distraction, fear, and indifference. On the other, faith that moves mountains, prayer that opens paths, and love that endures even in the face of pain. In this confrontation, there is no room for neutrality. Either you are protected by the armor Mary requested, or you will be easily wounded by the traps of these times. Have you ever felt like you are living in times of heightened spiritual tension, as if something greater were about to happen? The prophecies and mysteries of Medjugorje point to this. A time when every decision will carry eternal weight. It's not about scaring, but about awakening. The Mother of God herself in her messages repeats that we should not be afraid, but rather be prepared. Fear paralyzes, but preparation strengthens. And this preparation doesn't begin tomorrow. It begins now, in the heart that chooses to watch, pray, and put on this armor that many still ignore. Throughout history, saints, prophets, and even ordinary people have experienced this inner calling, that life is much more than the visible routine. There is something hidden, a battle that rages silently but directly affects every step of our journey. This is why Mary insists on giving us clear instructions, like a mother preparing her children before a long storm. Have you ever experienced this, feeling deep down that something was calling you to change, to strengthen yourself, even without fully understanding why? This is the essence of spiritual armor. It's not just a pretty metaphor, it's a concrete path made of discipline, trust, and surrender. With each prayer, you build an invisible wall. With each act of fasting, you weaken that which tries to dominate your soul. With each act of love, you wield a sword that cuts through the darkness. This is the language of unrevealed messages, symbols that call us to live in an awakened, not dormant way. And it's precisely at this point that many get lost, thinking they can just wait for everything to reveal itself. But Mary doesn't ask us to be passive. She asks us for action, movement, and determination, because the ultimate test won't be won by those who merely listen, but by those who put on this armor every day. What you'll discover in the next few minutes can completely transform the way you view your spiritual life and your own preparation for what's to come. Now, let's take the next step and understand how this armor was described, piece by piece, within the Medjugorje messages that continue to echo to this day. When we think about this armor Mary asks of us, it's impossible not to feel a personal, intimate call, almost as if each word were directed directly to our heart. Perhaps you've already experienced this sensation, as if something greater were asking you to prepare yourself, to strengthen your faith, and not let routine swallow up what is truly essential. It's precisely at this point that I want to open up space for you. If this topic resonates with you, leave here in the comments what has touched you most so far. It could be a memory, an experience, or even a question. Each share helps create a community where everyone learns and grows together. And it's precisely this participation that keeps this message alive. When you like it, YouTube understands the value of this content and shows it to more people who also need to hear this call. It's a simple gesture, but it makes a huge difference. Likewise, subscribing to the channel is like taking another step on this spiritual journey with me, always receiving new content that will strengthen your faith and inner preparation. Your presence here isn't just as a viewer, but as someone who's part of a larger movement. Every comment, every subscription, every like paves the way for this message to reach hearts that may be on edge, in need of a word of hope. Your participation here is what makes this channel grow and reach more people with this type of content. And while you reflect on this, let's delve even deeper into this mystery and discover how this spiritual armor manifests itself, piece by piece, so that we can better understand Mary's request and how to apply it in our daily lives. The apparitions of Medjugorje began in 1981, in a small village in Bosnia and Herzegovina, when 6 young people claimed to have seen the Virgin Mary. Since then, millions of pilgrims have visited that place seeking signs, answers, and inner transformations. But what keeps this phenomenon so alive today is not just popular devotion, but also the mystery surrounding the messages received. Among the hundreds of messages already transmitted, 7 remain hidden, kept in silence, as if they were secrets, destined for the right time. It is precisely in this silence that curiosity grows, and at the same time the certainty that something grand lies behind it. Many call these 7 secrets the hidden heart of Medjugorje. They have not been revealed to the public, but according to the visionaries, they contain warnings and instructions for crucial moments in humanity's life. Imagine the weight of this. Messages that can bring not only warnings, but also the key to spiritual survival in the face of what they call the supreme test. It's as if we were standing before a closed vault, where within lies the hidden truth about the future of faith, hope, and humanity's destiny. Throughout history, there have always been prophecies pointing to times of trial. The Bible itself speaks of signs, tribulations, and the call to vigilance. But what sets Medjugorje apart is the detail of the revelations. Each message, even those we already know, brings impressive clarity about what we should do. Pray, fast, be vigilant, convert. Our hearts. All of this already seems like preparation for something much greater. And when we think of the 7 unrevealed messages, it feels as if they contain a map of spiritual instructions for facing the chaos yet to come. And this isn't fantasy or stories invented to fuel curiosity. What keeps the mystery of Medjugorje alive is consistency. Decades have passed, and yet the visionaries have never contradicted themselves, never changed the narrative. On the contrary, their lives have become examples of spiritual discipline and courage in the face of worldly pressures. This reinforces the authority of their testimony and the authenticity of something that, even shrouded in mystery, carries a profound impact. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject. When we speak of secrets, it's common to think of something frightening or inaccessible, but Mary never revealed her messages to provoke fear. On the contrary, her tone was always maternal, full of tenderness, but also firmness. She calls to humanity like a mother warning her children before a storm. Prepare yourselves, take cover, do not be afraid, but be alert. This is why many scholars and believers believe that the spiritual armor she requests is directly connected to these secrets. Each piece of this armor, prayer, fasting, love, vigilance, functions as a password to access the protection God reserves for those who listen to Him. The beauty of Medjugorje also lies in the contrast between simplicity and depth. The setting is humble, a village without great resources, but from it come words that cross borders and transform mindsets. This shows that no matter where we are or who we are, the call to preparation is universal. True strength lies not in the external setting, but in the internal decision to don this armor. It is at this point that we realize that secrets, even without being revealed, already serve a purpose, awakening in us the awareness that there is more behind the scenes of spiritual life than we can see. This hidden truth becomes even clearer when we observe how the revealed messages have already impacted thousands of people. There are reports of healings, profound conversions, and life changes that began the very moment someone decided to heed this call. It's not just about religion, It's about real transformation, about daily decisions that shape who we are before eternity. And if the messages already known already have this effect, what about those that remain hidden? Here's an important reflection. Perhaps we don't need to wait for these secrets to be revealed before taking action. Perhaps the key to preparation lies in believing that silence also speaks. When something is hidden, it doesn't mean absence, but rather intensity. It's as if Mary were saying, I can't reveal it yet, but I'm already giving you everything you need to be ready. This presents us with a choice: to remain still, waiting for answers, or to walk with the armor that is already available to us even without having all the revelations in hand. This mystery is also an invitation to humility. After all, how often do we want to control everything, know every detail, have every explanation? But faith teaches us that trust is often born in the dark, and that the true power of preparation lies in walking without seeing the horizon, trusting that the light will shine at the right time. It is precisely this trust that shapes spiritual armor, because without faith it would be nothing more than an empty symbol. And that's why reflecting on Medjugorje isn't just about looking back at a distant history, but about recognizing that it has a direct impact on our personal journey. With every prayer we say, every fast we accept, every act of love we practice, we are, in some way, responding to these secrets. They concern not only the collective future of humanity, but the individual future of each of us. Because the ultimate test will not be faced only in major global events, but in the silence of the soul that chooses to be faithful. Comment: this makes sense to me. And together we will continue to delve into this mystery that still holds so many revelations. When we speak of armor, our minds immediately picture gleaming metal, sharp swords, and soldiers on the battlefield. But the armor Mary requested is not made of iron, but of choices, virtues, and attitudes that shape the spirit. It doesn't protect the body against spears or arrows, but envelops the soul in a strength that withstands the most invisible and intense trials. This spiritual armor is like a silent wall, invisible to the human eye, yet powerful enough to face the darkness unseen by the physical eye. Think about how many times you felt vulnerable, as if defenseless in the face of situations that seemed bigger than you. Unexpected problems, painful losses, doubts that eat away at the mind. It's precisely in these moments that spiritual armor becomes vital, because it's built not in the rush of a crisis, but in daily life, in the silent and faithful habits of those who choose faith as a lifestyle. Prayer, fasting, vigilance, love for others. Each of these elements functions as a piece of this protection, as if Mary were teaching us how to assemble, little by little, an invisible piece of equipment that makes us strong in the face of the inevitable. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic because the symbolism of this armor is not only religious, but also psychological, emotional, and even practical. Prayer, for example, is not just a devotional practice. It's also a way to reorganize the mind, align thoughts with something greater, and break through internal confusion. It acts as a shield against despair, a reminder that we are not alone. Fasting, in turn, goes beyond the simple act of abstaining from food. It's a mindset workout, a discipline that shows us that the body can't dictate all the rules, and that there's power in learning to master one's desires. Faith, in this context, is the helmet that protects the mind. Without it, any doubt or fear can become a gap through which darkness enters. Faith doesn't eliminate problems, but it gives us the courage to face them, transforming the way we view obstacles. Love, on the other hand, is like the sword that cuts the chains of selfishness and resentment. It's not a superficial feeling, but a daily decision to choose the light even when everything around us seems dark. It's in this symbolism that we understand spiritual armor isn't fantasy, it's a survival strategy amidst the ultimate test. The impact of this on real life is enormous. Those who live with this armor are not immune to suffering, but they find meaning even in the midst of it. It's as if each tear becomes part of a purification process, each difficulty a chance for maturity, each struggle a further step toward inner transformation. This is the hidden truth that many ignore, the real, Battle doesn't happen outside, it happens within. The most dangerous enemy isn't in the world, but in our own decisions, in the choices we make silently, when no one is looking. And see how this symbolism fits into the journey we all take. Life is, in itself, an arena. There are days of victory, but also days when everything seems to fall apart. If we don't have this inner protection, any blow can knock us down. But when we don this armor, we discover a resilience we didn't even know we had. It's like walking with an extra strength, one that doesn't come from us but manifests itself because we decide to trust in something greater. This is the central point of Mary's request. She doesn't call us to isolated heroism, but to a posture of constancy. The armor isn't donned in a single day. It's built piece by piece in every act of faith, in every gesture of compassion, in every silent renunciation. Behind the scenes of the spiritual life, it's this constancy that makes the difference. Those who ignore these small acts think they're safe, but when the time comes to test them, they discover they were unarmed. Those who prepare with humility, however, find a strength that can't be explained, only experienced. Perhaps this is the great revelation behind the mystery. The supreme test will not be overcome with human intelligence, but with spiritual perseverance. And the armor Mary asks for is not just protection, it is also transformational. It changes the way we think, feel, and react. It makes us more attentive, more courageous, more compassionate. It is, in short, a mindset that does not bend in the face of chaos. This symbolism leads us to reflect on our own personal battles. We all carry fragile areas, open wounds, memories that still weigh heavily. Spiritual armor doesn't erase pain, but rather gives it new meaning, because when we protect ourselves with it, even our scars become signs of victory. This preparation is intimate, unique, yet universal. Each of us has something to face, and each of us can decide whether to face it with or without armor, right there. I'm on this journey too, and let's continue together, because there is still much to reveal about this preparation that completely transforms the way we face life. Vigilance is the first piece of this spiritual armor, and perhaps the most urgent for our times. When Mary speaks of vigilance, she's not only asking us to look outward, attentive to the signs the world presents, but also to turn our gaze inward, examining our own hearts and recognizing the gaps that can become open doors to darkness. Vigilance is more than observing. It's cultivating an awakened, conscious mindset, capable of seeing beyond appearances. How many times have we been in situations where the signs were clear, but distraction prevented us from noticing? This is the essence of alertness, not living, asleep but awake to the hidden truth revealed in the details. In the context of the Medjugorje messages, vigilance takes on an even deeper meaning. The visionaries repeat that the signs have already begun, but many simply don't see them. This happens because amid the hustle and bustle of everyday life, people have lost their spiritual sensitivity. It's like walking through a storm without noticing the thunder that announces something greater. Mary asks us to pay attention, not to generate fear, but to awaken the responsibility of our decisions. Being vigilant is understanding that every choice, no matter how small, impacts our journey and shapes our soul's destiny. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. If we think about it, vigilance is like an inner sentinel. Imagine yourself in a tall tower observing the horizon. The watchman needs to identify movements, omens, and subtle changes that announce what's to come. This should also be our attitude toward the times we live in. The temptation to fall into complacency is great, but the armor only fulfills its purpose when the wearer keeps their eyes open. It's not enough to have faith and love. You need to be alert to avoid surprise. A lack of vigilance opens the door to distractions, addictions, anxieties, and even that inner voice that convinces us to postpone the essential. Vigilance also involves the behind-the-scenes aspects of our inner life. We often think the enemy is always outside, in external people or situations, but the greatest battle is within us. Being vigilant means observing our thoughts, identifying patterns that distance us from God, and nipping at the root those small, concessions that seem harmless but gradually erode our spiritual strength. It is at this point that we understand that the ultimate test will not begin with a major global event, but with each silent decision we make in our daily lives. Mary's call to vigilance invites us to see reality through different eyes. It's not about living paranoidly, searching for signs in every shadow, but about adopting a lucid and attentive stance, unprepared for illusions. The world offers many distractions, and it is precisely within them that danger lurks. Those who are attentive realize that there is a battle behind what appears to be merely banal, a piece of news, a conversation, a seemingly harmless habit. The hidden truth reveals itself to those who are vigilant, because vigilance opens the door to discernment, and discernment is one of the most powerful weapons against deception. The impact of this vigilance goes beyond spirituality. It transforms the way we relate to one another, how we react to challenges, and how we choose our priorities in life. Those who are vigilant are not easily deceived, nor are they carried away by fleeting emotions or empty promises. Vigilance is maturity. It is the courage to see reality as it is, not as we wish it were. It is the opposite of naivete. When we are vigilant, our journey is guided not by impulses, but by consciousness. Looking back at history, we realize that great transformations occurred precisely when ordinary people chose to pay attention to what others ignored. This attitude of vigilance has always preceded profound changes, both personal and collective. Perhaps that's why Mary insists so much on this point. Without vigilance, the armor becomes incomplete. It's like a soldier who has all the necessary protective gear but falls asleep on the battlefield. Victory will never belong to those who sleep, but to those who keep watch, even when they seem tired, even when everything around them suggests giving up. And this vigilance also extends to reading the signs of the times. The events around us cannot be interpreted merely as isolated facts. There are revelations hidden in the movements of history, in conflicts, in social changes, in the crisis of faith in so many parts of the world. Those who are vigilant can perceive connections that the distracted miss. It's not about predicting dates or expecting catastrophes, but about reading reality with spiritual eyes, understanding that nothing happens by chance. Spiritual armor begins precisely there, with the awakening of consciousness, the decision not to live on autopilot, the courage to face the hidden truth that manifests itself in the details. Those who accept this call discover a strength that is not visible, but that gives them the strength to face even the densest darkness. Vigilance is synonymous with preparation. Without it, all other efforts are lost. With it, everything makes sense because the person no longer lives merely reacting, but consciously choosing. Right there. I'm on this journey too. And let's continue exploring each piece of this armor that Mary asks of us. Because each detail of this call brings revelations that can completely change the way we face life. Prayer is the heart of this spiritual armor, the shield that stands against the darkness and prevents invisible attacks from reaching the soul. Mary repeats this in Medjugorje with almost maternal insistence. Pray, pray, pray. Not as a mechanical obligation, but as a gesture of life, a breath of the soul. For many, prayer seems too simple given the enormity of the challenges we face, but precisely in its simplicity lies the secret. When we place ourselves before God in prayer, we are not just speaking words. We are creating an atmosphere around us that changes our mindset, calms our thoughts, and strengthens our hearts against despair. It's curious to realize how universal prayer is. In every culture and era, it appears as a bridge between the human and the divine, as if within each being there is a need to connect to something greater. Mary simply rekindles this flame and shows us that prayer cannot be sporadic, but constant. Because the spiritual battle is also constant. Those who pray once and then forget live unprotected, but those who make prayer part of their daily journey discover that even amid storms, there is a peace the world cannot give. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because prayer isn't just a request for help, it's also an act of transformation. When you pray, you shift your focus, shifting your attention from pain and uncertainty to trust in God. This doesn't eliminate problems, but it gives you the strength to face them. It's as if each prayer adds a new layer to this protective shield, making it increasingly resistant to the temptations, anguish, and destructive thoughts that try to invade our minds. Behind the scenes of spiritual life, prayer functions as a dialogue that keeps us vigilant. We often think of prayer as talking, a lot, but Mary reminds us that it also involves listening. The silence that arises after prayer is as powerful as the words spoken, because it is in it that we receive direction, revelation, and the clarity to make important decisions. The hidden truth is that prayer not only touches God's heart, but also transforms us from within, changing our attitude toward life. It's impossible to talk about the supreme test without highlighting the power of this invisible shield. Prayer protects not only against spiritual attacks but also against the emotional traps that surround us. How often in the midst of a crisis have we felt like giving up? And it is precisely in these moments that a sincere prayer becomes the breath that rekindles hope. The impact of this is real. People who after years of separation return to faith through a simple prayer, families who find reconciliation, hearts that rediscover peace after carrying so much weight. This is why Mary never tires of asking for prayer. She knows that this shield never fails even when all else fails. It's not about magic formulas, but about proximity. Those who pray draw closer to the source of all strength, and this proximity creates an invisible barrier against the darkness. More than that, prayer opens our eyes to perceive what was hidden, reveals previously invisible paths, illuminates hidden corners of life that seemed confusing, and gives courage to face situations that once seemed impossible. Every time we bend our knees, we build a wall against that which tries to bring us down. Every time we pray in silence, we offer space for God to speak amidst the noise of the world. And every time we gather in prayer, this shield becomes even stronger, because it not only protects us individually, but creates a current capable of transforming entire environments. This is the essence of Mary's request: constant, daily, living prayer. Not because God needs our words, but because we need this shield that keeps our soul steadfast in the face of battle. Comment: this makes sense to me. And let's continue diving into this mystery together, because there is still much more to understand about each piece of this spiritual armor that prepares us for what is to come. Fasting is one of the most forgotten and yet most powerful spiritual weapons that Mary asks us to practice. It's not just a renunciation of food, but a gesture of discipline, inner freedom, and openness to something greater. When we fast, our body complains, our stomach protests, our thoughts try to convince us it's not worth it. But it's precisely in this internal confrontation that the Spirit finds its strength. Fasting teaches us that we are not slaves to our immediate desires, that we can choose above momentary desires, and this becomes direct training for resisting the more subtle temptations life presents us. Mary in Medjugorje insists on fasting because she knows it is a silent battlefield. With each meal we skip for love of God, we make room for Him to occupy a territory within us that was previously filled by excess, haste, and attachment. Fasting is like an emptying. We set aside what nourishes only the body to make room for the nourishment that sustains the soul. This seemingly small movement has an immense impact because it creates a space for transformation that changes not only how we feel, but also how we think and decide. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic because fasting has a direct connection to the mindset of vigilance and prayer. Those who fast become more attentive because their senses become more alert and clearer. The mind, previously scattered, gains focus. Prayer, previously hurried, finds depth. It's as if fasting opens a door to a clearer dimension of spiritual life where we can see hidden truths that were previously obscured by everyday distractions. Behind the scenes of this practice, something magnificent happens. We learn to renounce the immediate to receive the eternal. And here's a detail that often goes unnoticed. Fasting isn't just about eating less, but about giving more. It only makes sense when accompanied by a heart willing to offer what the body lacks as a surrender to God. It is in this act of voluntary sacrifice that the soul is strengthened. This discipline reminds us that we are on a journey, and that every journey, requires renunciation, conscious choices, and preparation. Just as an athlete trains before a competition, fasting is the spiritual training that prepares us for the ultimate test. Mary asks us to fast on bread and water, simply yet profoundly. There is no ostentation in this request, only humility and constancy. She knows that by practicing this act regularly, the soul becomes more docile to God's voice, freer from the bonds that bind it to the illusions of the world. This practice creates a shift in mindset. Instead of living to satisfy fleeting desires, we begin to live for what truly matters. The impact is visible not only spiritually, but also in how we deal with life situations. Those who practice fasting discover an inner strength they never knew they possessed. It's as if each day of renunciation reveals a new step on the ladder of trust in God. The hunger we feel in our bodies transforms into a thirst for divine presence in our souls. And it is at this point that we understand why Mary insists so strongly. Without discipline, spiritual armor becomes fragile. With discipline, it becomes unbreakable. This spiritual weapon shows us that victory is not achieved through excess, but through the ability to empty oneself to be filled with what truly matters. Fasting, therefore, is a key that opens the heart to deeper revelations. It places us face to face with ourselves, revealing our frailties, but also awakening our courage. It teaches us to make clear decisions, to separate the essential from the superfluous, to walk lightly in the face of trials. This practice directly connects body and spirit, creating a harmony that strengthens us from the inside out. Those who fast with faith realize that the struggle is not against food, but against the lack of self-control, against the attachment that prevents us from being free. That's why this spiritual weapon is indispensable in preparing for the supreme test. Fasting is not just a temporary renunciation, it is a school of transformation. It molds us in silence, trains us behind the scenes of life, and empowers us to face temptations that, without it, would be unbearable. And at the same time, it unites us with Mary's messages because each gesture of renunciation is a concrete response to her maternal request. There is no theory here. There is practice. There is life. There is real surrender. Comment. This makes sense to me, and let's continue this reflection together, because there is still much to reveal about how each piece of this spiritual armor can completely change the way we face our journey. Faith is presented as the helmet of hope because, just as a helmet protects a warrior's head from mortal blows, faith protects the human mind from the invisible attacks of fear, doubt, and hopelessness. Without this protection, any negative thought can become a lethal weapon, capable of paralyzing decisions and weakening courage. This is why Mary so insists that we not abandon faith, especially in times of chaos. Unshakable faith acts as a barrier that prevents the voices of darkness from dominating the heart. And more than that, it creates a mindset of trust, even when the outlook seems lost. When the world crumbles around us, when everything points to defeat, faith is that silent voice that says, "There is still a way. There is still a promise. There is still light." This is the power of the spiritual helmet. It doesn't eliminate struggles, but it protects the mind from being destroyed by discouragement. How many times have we seen people who, faced with the same difficulties, react completely differently? Some give in to despair, others remain steadfast. The difference between them is not the number of problems, but the faith they carry. This faith generates hope, and hope sustains even when everything seems impossible. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because faith isn't just believing in something distant, but choosing a concrete stance toward life. It's a daily decision to keep your gaze fixed on the promise, not the problem. It's understanding that faith doesn't depend on feelings, but on convictions. It doesn't deny pain. It doesn't pretend difficulties don't exist, but it affirms that none of this can nullify God's purpose. This mindset completely transforms the way we face trials because faith teaches us to see beyond circumstances and to move forward even when we can't see our final destination. Behind the scenes of spiritual life, this helmet is indispensable. The enemy knows that if he can dominate our mind, he'll have already won half the battle. That's why he instills thoughts of fear, futility, and failure. He tries to convince us that it's not worth continuing, that we're alone, that the struggle will never end. But when faith covers our mind like a helmet, these attacks find no way. A mind protected by faith is not deceived by illusions, does not give in to pessimism, and does not allow room for discouragement. On the contrary, it is strengthened by hope, which is like a flame that never goes out. This is the real impact of faith. It redefines our worldview. People with faith see opportunities where others only see barriers, find purpose amid pain, and walk with courage even when the winds are against them. This is not a naive faith, but a mature faith, built on small daily experiences, on the times we decide to trust instead of fear, to be grateful instead of complaining, to hope instead of giving up. Faith is a journey, and each step taken with confidence becomes another layer of this helmet that protects our minds against hopelessness. And the most interesting thing is that faith always goes hand in hand with hope. There is no true faith that doesn't point to something beyond the present. When we believe, we automatically awaken hope, and this hope fuels our resilience in the face of trials. This dynamic is what keeps our hearts steadfast even when all seems lost. That's why the helmet of faith is essential. Without it, any negative thought can bring us down. With it, even words of defeat lose strength in the face of trust in God. Right there. I'm on this journey too, because this reflection on faith as a helmet of hope will continue to deepen, revealing dimensions that touch not only the mind, but also the soul and the entire path we are walking. Love is the sword of victory because it is the only weapon capable of cutting the invisible chains that bind humanity to fear, hatred, and selfishness. Unlike any other force, it does not destroy in order to win, but heals, restores, and transforms. When Mary speaks of love, she is not referring to a fleeting or fragile feeling, but to a conscious decision, a stance that sustains even in the midst of tribulation. True love is active, steadfast, and requires courage to resist darkness and boldness to illuminate what seems lost. It is the thread of light that pierces the deepest darkness and shows that victory will not come through violence, but through surrender. In times of chaos, when everything seems divided and dominated by resentment, love becomes the most subversive and powerful weapon. It acts not according to human logic, which demands retaliation or defense, but according to divine logic, which responds with mercy. This choice disconcerts the enemy, because nothing is more disarming than finding love where hatred was expected. Love is the surefire blow that undoes the traps of pride, breaks the cycle of revenge, and transforms the mindset of those who dare to practice it. This is why it is called a sword, because it cuts invisibly but decisively what no material force could. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject because love, contrary to what many think, is not weakness. It is resilience. Loving in the midst of pain is one of the most revolutionary acts there is, because it goes against everything natural logic suggests. When we are hurt, the impulse is to retaliate. When we are rejected, the tendency is to close ourselves off. But love opens the door, extends a hand, and insists on seeing beyond the wound. This movement has an impact that goes far beyond the immediate moment, because it creates revelations in the lives of those who love and those who receive this gesture. Mary constantly reminds us that without love, all other spiritual weapons lose their meaning. Prayer, fasting, vigilance, faith, all of these must be sustained by love, otherwise they become empty. Love is the thread that holds together each piece of armor and gives meaning to the struggle. It not only protects, but also advances, transforming environments and hearts. Think of the power that exists in an act of forgiveness. How many stories were marked by decades of pain, but changed in an instant because of a decision to love? This is the kind of victory that doesn't make the news, but that silently changes destinies. Behind the scenes of spiritual life, it is love that keeps us going when we no longer have the strength. It reminds us that we fight not only for ourselves, but for others as well. This awareness broadens our horizons, because it makes us see that each act of love is a seed that germinates in someone's heart, often without us realizing it. Love doesn't calculate returns, it doesn't demand applause, but it bears eternal fruit. It is the weapon that wins seemingly impossible battles, precisely because it goes to the root of the problem: a lack of compassion. The hidden truth is that love is more than a beautiful feeling. It's a mindset choice. It's deciding every day that we won't let ourselves be dominated by resentment, indifference, or anger. And this isn't easy because it requires sacrifice, patience, and trust that kindness has a real impact even when it seems invisible. But those who choose to love discover a strength that never runs dry, because love is renewed every time it is practiced. This spiritual sword is not made of steel, but of decision. Every time we choose to love, even when we don't feel like it, we strike a blow against the darkness. Every time we offer compassion where indifference was expected, the battle shifts to the side of the light. This is the victory Mary shows us, not the victory that humiliates others, but the victory that liberates. Comment there. That makes sense to me, because this reflection on love as the sword of victory still opens space for us to understand how it connects to all spiritual armor, revealing that without it, no fight can truly be won. Family is one of the strongest points that Mary always emphasized in her messages. She never tires of repeating that the home should be a protected refuge, a space where collective prayer creates an invisible wall against the attacks of evil. And this isn't just symbolic language. Experience shows that families who cultivate spirituality together have a different resilience in the face of difficulties. When there is prayer within the home, the atmosphere changes. The atmosphere becomes lighter, clearer, as if each word addressed to God were a brick added to the fortress that protects those who live there. The home, however, is not just a physical space. It is the place where mindsets are formed, where decisions are shaped, where the first values take root. This is why Maria insists that family prayer should not be an occasional practice, but a constant one. When parents and children come together to pray, even in a simple way, they are building something the enemy cannot destroy. Behind the scenes of this silent practice, a transformation takes place. Bonds are strengthened, hurts are dissolved, and love finds new roots. The home becomes a sacred field where hope is not extinguished. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic because speaking of family as a protected refuge also means speaking of choices. At a time when many homes are fragmented by excessive distractions, the decision to cultivate unity becomes almost prophetic. Every meal shared in peace, every moment of genuine listening, every prayer said hand in hand is an act of resistance against the indifference that dominates the world. The hidden truth is that the greatest battle takes place not outside, but within. If the family is divided, everything else loses strength. But if the family is united, even the greatest storms can be faced without fear. That's why Mary insists so much. Protect your families, keep prayer alive within your home, care for one another. She knows that when the family becomes a sanctuary, it also becomes a light for those outside. The impact of this goes beyond the walls of the home. A family that prays together becomes a witness, a sign of hope for neighbors, friends, and entire communities. The protected refuge is not only for those inside, but also for those who come closer and feel the difference of an environment sustained by faith. And it's not about perfection. No family is perfect. All face challenges, fights, and disagreements. But when the decision is made to keep spirituality at the center, even conflicts become opportunities for growth. Forgiveness becomes more possible, patience becomes more present, love becomes more real. This is the silent transformation Mary calls for, that every home, even with its imperfections, chooses to be a place of peace, prayer, and spiritual protection. Comment there. That makes sense to me, because this reflection on the family, as a protected refugee, still paves the way for us to understand other pieces of this spiritual armor that Mary asks us to wear in our daily lives. Silence, so often mentioned by Mary in her messages, is one of the most enigmatic and, at the same time, most powerful pieces of this spiritual armor. We live in a noisy world where everything pushes us toward haste, distraction, and excessive stimulation. Noise isn't just on the streets or on screens, but also within us in our minds that never stop, in our multiplying worries, in the inner voices that vie for our attention. This is why silence becomes a secret of strength, because only in it can we hear what truly matters. Silence isn't the absence of sound, it's the presence of meaning. It's the space where the soul can breathe and align itself with divine purpose. Mary asks for silence because she knows that without it, it is almost impossible to hear God's voice. The deepest revelations, the most real transformations happen in this intimate and discreet place where there are no distractions, only listening. It is in this silence that prayer finds depth, the heart finds peace, and the mind finds clarity. We often think we need to speak a lot to be heard, but in spirituality, it is the opposite. It is when we stop speaking that we can listen. This seemingly simple secret is what strengthens us against the noise of the world that tries to confuse and weaken us. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because silence is not only a spiritual practice, it's also a mindset. It teaches us not to react immediately to everything, not to let external pressures determine our decisions. When we cultivate inner silence, we gain mastery over ourselves. We begin to act consciously, not just on impulse. This control protects us from thoughtless words, hasty choices, and hasty judgments. In silence, we perceive the hidden depths of life more clearly, because it is in silence that the most subtle revelations manifest. The impact of this is transformative. A person who finds refuge in silence can weather storms with serenity, because within them lies a fortress that noise cannot shake. This inner space becomes a kind of shield against external manipulation, against information overload, against corrosive anxiety. In silence, the spirit is strengthened, the mind is reorganized, and the heart opens to hear not only the voice of God, but also the hidden truth about oneself. It is in this secret place that we recognize our frailties and, at the same time, discover our strength. And here's an important detail. Silence is not isolation. It doesn't mean escaping the world or abandoning responsibilities, but learning to carry within yourself a protected space where nothing external can penetrate. Even in the midst of chaos, it is possible to maintain this inner strength. Mary teaches us that this silence is like invisible armor, protecting against hurtful words, frightening news, and fears that try to dominate. It gives us the ability to discern, to separate what is essential from what is passing noise. This secret of fortitude shows that many battles don't need to be fought with shouting or force, but with calm and inner presence. Silence, far from being a weakness, is a strategy. It allows us to see beyond the surface, understand situations more broadly, and choose wisely. By remaining silent, we not only hear God, but also see the hidden traps, the disguised temptations, the illusions that try to deceive us. This discernment is an essential part of the armor, because it prevents us from being dominated by the noise that confuses and the haste that leads us to fall. Silence is, therefore, more than a pause. It is a state of consciousness, a place of empowerment that sustains the entire spiritual journey. Those who learn to cultivate inner silence discover that they don't need to react to everything, that they can observe without getting lost, that they can decide without rushing. And this is one of the greatest weapons against darkness, the serenity of those who don't allow themselves to be dragged into chaos. Comment there. That makes sense to me, because this reflection on silence as the secret of strength still opens up space for us to understand how it connects with the promise of light that sustains this entire journey. The supreme test is one of the most mysterious and, at the same time, most challenging aspects of Mary's messages. She never described in detail what exactly will come, but she made it clear that there will be a moment when humanity will be faced with a decisive choice, a crossroads between light and darkness. This climax is not only a collective thing, but also personal, because each person will be called to decide whether or not they are prepared. And it is precisely in this scenario that spiritual armor takes on its deepest meaning. It is not a devotional adornment, but the indispensable protection needed to get through this time of testing without being destroyed by the pressures and illusions that will intensify. Mary reiterates that we should not be afraid but prepared. Fear paralyzes while preparation strengthens. The supreme test will not be won by those with greater intellectual knowledge or material resources, but by those who have cultivated a firm mindset, nourished by prayer, faith, love, and discipline. When all seems dark, those clothed in the armor will have an inner flame that will not be extinguished, a clarity that will keep them standing while many others succumb to confusion. This promise of light is like a beacon in the night. It does not eliminate the surrounding darkness but guides the path of those who choose to walk with confidence. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because this promise of light isn't just about a distant future, but begins now. Each time we choose to pray instead of complain, to forgive instead of holding a grudge, to be vigilant instead of distracted, we are training our souls to remain steadfast when the moment of greatest trial arrives. The impact of these small daily choices is immense, because they accustom us to placing hope above fear. Behind the scenes of the spiritual life, the ultimate test is already underway in every silent decision we make every day. The hidden truth is that this test will not only be external, but primarily internal. There will be signs in the world, yes, but the decisive battle will be within each heart. To believe or doubt, to remain faithful or yield to pressure, to walk in the light or be seduced by darkness. Mary makes it clear that we will not be helpless. She promises that those who put on the armor will have victory, not because they are strong in themselves, but because they have united themselves with the one who is the light itself. Victory is not just surviving, but passing through the darkness without losing faith, without letting hatred and hopelessness have the final word. This promise of light is the great counterpoint to the trial. It is the certainty that suffering will not be eternal, that pain will not have the final word. Even when all seems lost, there will be a radiance that will sustain those who trust. This light is a symbol of God's presence, of renewed hope, and of the peace the world cannot offer. Those who carry this promise within themselves will have a resilience that goes beyond human logic. They will be living signs amidst the darkness, testimonies that victory is possible even when everything seems to point to the contrary. This is the point at which we realize that armor is not only defense but also direction. It not only protects us from attacks, but also guides us where we should go. Prayer, fasting, faith, love, silence, and vigilance become instruments that illuminate the path, preventing us from losing our way. At the moment of supreme trial, those who have cultivated these practices will not be paralyzed, because they will have already trained their souls to walk in trust. The impact of this will be visible. While many will be disoriented, those who have prepared themselves will become guides, landmarks like small torches scattered amidst the darkness. This promise of light also reminds us that we do not walk alone. The unity of those who put on the armor will create a collective strength, an invisible network of protection and hope. Families, communities, and individuals who have chosen fidelity will be like fortresses spread throughout the world. This communal aspect is essential because Mary never speaks of isolated salvation, but always of unity. The supreme test will also be an opportunity to reveal how willing we are to walk together, supporting one another with courage and compassion. Comment there. That makes sense to me, because this reflection on the supreme test and the promise of light still leads us to understand how this spiritual preparation finds its climax in the hope of victory that Mary never stops announcing. The armor Mary asks us to put on is not a distant idea, reserved only for an uncertain future. It is a call to the present, to each day we live, to each silent decision we make when no one is looking. This preparation cannot be postponed, because life constantly presents us with choices that require courage, faith, and perseverance. And it is precisely in these moments that we realize whether or not we are clothed with the spiritual protection Mary so insistently offers us. The supreme test, with all its prophetic weight, may seem distant, but the hidden truth is that it already begins in our daily lives, in small sacrifices, in gestures of love, in the silence that chooses to hear God's voice over the noise of the world. This armor isn't merely symbolic. It's concrete in how it impacts our mindset and our journey. When we put it on, we stop being dragged down by fear or confusion and begin to walk firmly, even amidst uncertainty. Prayer, fasting, faith, love, silence, vigilance, and family unity are not just religious concepts but transformative practices that shape our character and sustain us when life's pressures seem unbearable. Preparation is a daily process, and the more we cultivate it, the more capable we become of facing not only what will come, but also the challenges that already lie before us. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic because there's something essential in Mary's request: urgency. It's not about waiting for the perfect moment, nor thinking we'll start tomorrow, but about understanding that the armor needs to be donned today. It's like a warrior who never removes his armor, knowing the battle can begin at any moment. If we put it off, we risk being caught unprepared. That's why this message has such a profound impact. It calls us to live awake, to choose consciously, and not to postpone the transformation that is already within our reach. The truth is that this armor is both defense and guidance. It protects us from invisible attacks but also guides us along the path of light. Those who choose to wear it not only resist, but also inspire. If each of us begins to practice these spiritual pieces in our daily lives, we will create an invisible chain of faith and hope capable of transforming environments, families, and even entire communities. The armor is not individual, it is also collective, because the good we cultivate within ourselves inevitably reaches those around us. Therefore, the great revelation of this call is that victory is not only in the future, but already manifests itself in the present. With each act of vigilance against distractions, with each sincere prayer, with each fast offered, with each gesture of love, we are already participating in this promise of light that Mary left us. The framework of the spiritual life is made up of these choices that seem small, but which, united, transform into an unbreakable shield. And it is precisely this constancy that prepares us for what is to come. If this message touched you, write in the comments, "I'm preparing myself with the armor of faith." Don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with anyone who needs to hear this message. And take advantage. Here's another video that delves even deeper into this mystery. Click and follow me there. If you've made it this far, it's because this message also spoke to your heart. So it makes sense to continue walking together. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any content like this, which can further strengthen your faith and daily preparation. And let me know in the comments, writing, "I'm with you until the end." So I know you've walked with me up to this point. Your like is also very important because it shows that this content made a difference to you and helps keep the connection we're building together alive. There's a video here that complements this topic and delves even deeper into this mystery. Click and stay with me there.